Hi everyone and welcome to another Gaffering Gear. In today's episode we're going to be looking at the Nanlite Pavo Tube 2 30Xs. Now these lights have some amazing capability, 2700 Kelvin all the way up to 12,000 Kelvin with full plus minus green. They have full RGB capabilities and as you can see here they also offer pixel effects. Now these things are very competitively priced, amazingly cheap for what they can do. But they do have several drawbacks that you need to be aware of before you buy them, particularly if you're looking at these as being a cheap alternative to something like a Titan tube. Okay, so let's start off with a quick run through of the capability of the tube. So first off, we'll talk about the sizes that are available. This is the 4-foot. Now you can also get a 2-foot, which is half the size, and you can also get an 8-foot, which is double the size. Now that's an important thing to note because a lot of manufacturers make the mistake of releasing a 2-foot or a 4-foot light and they don't have a family of sizes. And as you know, working on set, you need different size lights, so it's good to know that you can get a family. These have built-in batteries. Now, with my testing, I found that this unit running at 3200 Kelvin or 5600 Kelvin will give you a reliable 1 hour and 50 minutes of runtime. So I get a bit over that, but I'm going to call it 1 hour and 50 minutes for safety. The units also have DMX capability, which is wired. They don't have wireless DMX, but you can operate them wirelessly over phone app. All right, so let's start having a scroll through of the capabilities. So in the CCT mode, we've got a very wide CCT from 2700 Kelvin all the way up to 12,000 Kelvin. So a lot of people ask me, why would you need a light that goes up to 12,000 Kelvin? Well, where I use a light like that is if I'm shooting early in the morning and the sun hasn't come up over the horizon yet, you've got the sunlight bouncing off the atmosphere. That'll tend to be between 9,000 and 12,000 Kelvin, and that's where these Kelvin ranges can come in handy. The CCT mode also boasts plus minus green, and it does track the Planckian curve, so it is a proper full color gamut light. It is a full RGBW unit. In its white mode, it's not just using its warm white and cool white color emitters. All right, let's go through to the next mode now, which is HSI, hue, saturation, and intensity. And you've got all 360 colors. Now, it desaturates to white emitters, so you don't get that ugly desaturated RGB look. And over DMX, you can select your white point. So over DMX, you can dial in a Kelvin, a plus minus green, and then saturate a color into that because the DMX profiling on this unit is quite mature. It's not a sort of prosumer DMX. All right, let's go to next mode of operation, which is special effects. And these are basic special effects, like one whole tube operating, not pixel effects. So we've got things like here, which is a cop car, TV effect. What's this next one? Paparazzi camera flash. All of the standard sort of things. What's that? Candle fire. Now have a look at how beautifully this rolls off. It's actually quite a good candle fire effect. I quite like it. I'm quite impressed. The light engines do have a nice smooth roll off on them. We've got disco here, faulty bulb. I don't know what I've got the timing. There we go. I don't know what I had the timing set to on that. And fireworks. Now the next mode is pixel effects. So this thing does have separate pixel engines. So I'll just quickly scroll through some of these effects. You have more effects in the app, so that's rainbow. What's this? Hue loop. Okay, and that's, what's this thing called? Intensity loop. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of capabilities in these tubes, especially for the price. So let's get into price. Now in terms of pricing, there's lots of kit options because you've got 2-foot, 4-foot, and 8-foot. In addition to that, you can buy single tubes, double kits, quad kits, and kits of 8. So in terms of pricing, I'm just going to give you prices for 4-foot to give you some idea. Okay, so a single tube will sell for about 580 US dollars. That's about 720 Australian dollars. The double kit, which I have here, sells for about 1,000 US dollars. That's about 1,300 Australian dollars. The quad kit, the kit of 4, sells for about 2,000 US dollars. That's about 2,600 Australian dollars. And the 8 kit sells for about 5,000 US dollars, which is about 5,900 Australian dollars. So in the double kit, which I've got here, you get 2 tubes, of course. That comes in a bag. The bag's very well built. The bag's actually improved upon compared to the original Nanlite bags. It's slightly better build quality. Not heaps, but slightly better. All right, you get separate compartments in the bags for storage. Now, here's something. You get 2 separate power supplies. So they don't have that double power supply catastrophe that they had with the original Pavo tube. So 2 separate power supplies. You get IEC leads, 2 IEC leads that will connect to whatever your regional plug is. You get 2 of the clamps, the tube clamps. So I've got 1 here and 1 on the tube over there. And you get 4 of these mounting eyelets. So 4 of those. Now, I forgot to mention you also get these elasticated holders to mount to your power supply, so you can rig them onto light stands. And the clamps do have standard size threads for industry spigots. All right, let's go through the pros and cons, starting with the cons first. And the first con, I don't really consider it a con, it's a limitation, but I'm going to put it in the category of a con or a negative simply because a lot of YouTube influencers and reviewers have been saying that these things are a Titan tube equivalent. They're not a Titan tube equivalent, they're a Titan tube alternative. So if you can't afford a Titan tube, or if you don't need some of the things that a Titan tube can do in the pixel modes, then these are a fantastic, cost-effective alternative. So I'll just go through what I'd consider to be a negative if you're comparing these with Titan tubes, which I think is completely unfair because they're in different price brackets. All right, so first off, this effect is running at full speed. Okay, so that's going absolutely full speed. A Titan tube would go about 4 times faster than this. Now, I've come to the conclusion, having played with the app for several days, that the reason that the effects don't go faster than this is at this speed, as maximum speed, the tubes struggle to stay in sync. This is the fastest I reckon you're going to get an effect to run and have any chance of the tubes staying in sync. So let's have a look at these. So, every now and then I reckon one of the tubes is slightly out. I don't know how much of this is the rolling shutter in my camera either, but yeah, this is sort of the maximum speed and synchronicity that you're going to get out of this tube system. Now, to give you some idea of the difference, these are Titan tubes running at full speed and the sync is almost spot on. But once again, it's a totally different price point. Now, as you can see here, you can still get some pretty funky effects happening. It's just not going to happen at lightning speed and with super sync. Now, this brings me to my next issue, and that is even at this speed, the tubes can go out of time with each other and you might have to restart the effect. Now, in the app here, they've got a restart effect button, so you give that a hit and that'll restart the effect off. Usually I get about 14-15 minutes and then I have to hit the reset. Now I'll just get to my next negative, and that's the DMX, or more to the point, how the DMX connects to the tubes. Now, to run the tubes over DMX, you need a plug-in and adapter cable, which is sold separately. So it has whatever this connector is, and at the other end, it's 2 5-pin XLRs, male and female, which is the industry standard, which is a good thing. Now, my issue with plugging this in is it connects to the end of the tube. So here's my problem with this. If you're running, say, a pixel effect and you want to run it as a flow effect or as a series effect, which I mean it goes from one tube across to the other, you can't butt the tubes up close to each other now because the cabling is in the way. Furthermore, if you want to run the tube on a floor stand, which is an optional extra, and you also want to run it off DMX, the cabling now plugs into the top. So you've got to find some way of concealing your cable behind the tube, which distracts from the elegant look that the tube otherwise has. Furthermore to this, the power cable also plugs into the top. My next negative is with the current version of the phone app. It is very buggy and it feels like it's been rushed to market, in particular when you're running groups of lights with a pixel effect. So the rest of the app's pretty good. Overall, I'd give the rest of the app an 8 out of 10, and it's actually one of the best easiest to use user interfaces I've ever come across. So this is a real shame. But problems I've encountered when running multiple tubes over pixel effects is things like restarting the effect, and the tubes have changed order. So for example, I set up a flow effect going between one tube to another, turned everything off, had lunch, came back, and then when I restarted it all, tube 2 was now tube 1. So stuff like that would be incredibly frustrating if you had built the tubes into your set. I've also encountered other problems like restarting an effect and the effect has decided to switch from running in series to running in parallel. I've also had things happen like adjusting the parameters on an effect and then looking at the tubes, and the tubes have completely changed the effect altogether. So for example, they might have been running a process, and then when I've made my parameter adjustments, I've looked up and they're running a rainbow effect. So this is quite disappointing, and hopefully it gets fixed soon. Okay, so let's go through the positives now. All right, so things you can't see by looking at it. So color render and CCT accuracy. They'll be covered later on in the video, but just a quick overview, superb. So TM30 color vector scores 94, 95 across the bulk of the range that we normally use. So excellent color render. All right, so let's talk about improvements over the first Pavo tubes. The number one improvement is the front of the units here, the perspex. On the original tubes, you could make out the LEDs, but these ones you can't. So if you're shooting into the product, like we are here, you cannot see the pixels. So that's a huge improvement. In terms of other build improvements, the back of the unit is now metal. Okay, so it's really solidly built. The end caps are steel, okay, or at least a very solid metal. Now with the end caps, they've got flat surfaces, so you can easily angle the tube onto the angle that you want, so 45 degrees, 90 degrees, without it rolling off the table. Now the end caps also have quarter 20 threads drilled into them. So if you're a young gaffer starting out and you've got some grip equipment, chances are that your grip equipment is compatible with these lights. Now apart from the two threads on the back, you've also got a thread on the bottom. So that gives you plenty of rigging options to go with. Now, in addition to that, this product has a massive lineup of accessories that are available for it. So things like waterproof housings, better clamping options, things like snap grids, stuff like that. Now, the kit is sold with 4 of these eyelets. So straight out of the bag, you've got a way that you can mount this using string or wire as a practical above your set. So, you know, very, very well thought out. Another improvement over the original Pavo tubes is the control section is recessed. So you're not going to have buttons get bumped. With the original Pavo tubes, every time I put them down like that, they would go into cop car mode. So that's not going to happen with these. The menu system is incredibly easy to operate. Let's have a look. Okay, so we've got an on-off rocker switch. That's pretty straightforward. We've got a USB port for firmware updates, and we've got our 6 control buttons and screen. So the first button is mode. That toggles between the modes of operation. The mode of operation you're currently in is indicated in the top left-hand corner of the screen. So if I press the mode button, we now scroll to HSI. If I press it again, we've scrolled to effect. If I press it again, we've scrolled to pixel effect. If I press it again, we're in the menu system. And if I press it again, we're back to our CCT mode. The next button is switch, and that switches between the parameters you can adjust. So at the moment, I've got the dimmer selected, but if I press switch, it'll change to CCT. If I press switch again, it'll change to plus minus green. If I press it again, it'll scroll through to brightness or dimmer. Now we've got our plus minus buttons. Whatever is selected as a parameter, we can adjust with the plus minus buttons. Okay, let's go through to the next mode of operation, which is HSI. Let's say we want to change the color, which is our hue. I press switch until hue is highlighted. Then I can use the plus minus buttons to change the color. Now let's explain the trigger button. That is for the effects mode. So let's go to effects mode. If you've got an effect that finishes in manual, this one's explosion manual, that means you can manually trigger the effect by hitting the trigger button. So 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. Now let's have a look through the menu. So we've got a choice of channel, so that is for DMX and for phone app operation. The next choice is language. I don't want to press that. Okay, we can select our DMX mode, and we've got multiple choices here for the DMX mode. Next thing down is how many pixels we're running in DMX mode. We've got our wireless version, our Bluetooth reset. The Bluetooth reset is what you use to link the tube to your mobile phone app. Next thing down is your firmware version to let you know what version of firmware you've got so you can see if you're up to date. So as you can see, ease of operation is definitely a plus with this light. And the next plus for these tubes, as far as I'm concerned, is they have DMX capability. Now the DMX is very mature compared to other products ever released in the past. So you've got 8-bit and 16-bit profiling. You've got CCT modes and HSI modes. You've got combination modes like CCT HSI and CCT RGB. The light also has an ultimate mode. Now the app's being pretty well behaved at the moment, so I'm going to take this time to show you how fantastic the user interface is. And I think the best way to do that is to go through an effect that would be quite hard to do on other tube systems, and that's a driving effect where you've got the lights going past the vehicle. So I'll just kill our main lights and we'll just have a look at what's going on behind us here. So on the app here, this is the driving effect. So you can select your ambient level here, which I've got a blue set into. But yeah, for example, you could change that to a different color, for example. But I just thought it'd be funky to have that as like a night blue, a desaturated sort of night blue light. Now, the next thing you can select is how many street lights are running. So we can select 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay, so let's go back to 1 because I know that works. Okay, now here's a glitch in the app already. So this is something that tends to happen in this effect. You tend to get pixels die after you've made changes. So it's not. That's what I mean by it's not 100% working well. Now you can select your street light number 1, and we can put changes into that. So we can change the width of the pixels that are illuminated. We can lengthen it, make it a longer light source that's going through, and we can speed it up. Now, I'll just show you full speed here. So this is the one app where the tubes do go faster, but as I said earlier, when you're running fast, the tubes go out of sync. So you probably notice here, it's almost running in parallel. The command structure is not quite there. So, but yeah, if you're running slow, you can get some pretty funky effects going on here. And once they get the app sorted out, I think this will be amazing. Now let's say have 2 street lights. So we've got our 1 street light running, and we can change the preferences on our 2nd street light. So let's make that a color. Now, unfortunately, this is where the app falls apart in this effect. Street light number 2, number 3, number 4 are always black. They haven't got the software sorted out, but can you imagine if they did get this software sorted out, particularly if you're someone that uses Titan tubes? Something like this is not that easy to set up, but let's just do a quick recap. You can select your ambient color, which I don't know if you can do that on a Titan tube. I haven't been able to figure that out. Then you can select the amount of street lights and then adjust each street light separately. So when they get the app sorted out, if they ever do, I think this would be a gold standard for ease of operation on a simulated travel lighting setup. Okay, let's start testing the DMX. Now I have 2 negatives with the DMX. The first negative is when the light is receiving a DMX signal, you are blocked from being able to change the DMX address. So if you've already got a signal going in and you want to change your address, you're going to have to disconnect the cable. The next negative I have is there's no smoothing with the DMX. So if you're running a hand-operated console or finger controls, you're going to get some pretty dramatic shimmering happening. Also, because there's no smoothing, if you're running something like a Lumen radio receiver, which only runs at a 45 Hertz or thereabouts refresh rate, you're going to see that stepping in your dims. Now, of course, if you're not doing dimming, you can run a Lumen radio signal into it, no problem at all. And chances are, if you're shooting at a standard frame rate, you're not going to see the 45 Hertz refresh anyway. All right, so let's plug a cable connection in, and just a few things to clarify before we get into the testing. I'm running the CCT HSI mode, and I'm only running 8-bit. I'm not running 16-bit. All right, so let's cross to the tube now and have a look. So let's start off with instant on-offs. So what I'm looking for here is there any stepping in the light engine? And there isn't. It's instantly on off. So I know the tube can do that if I need to do that as an effect over DMX. Okay, let's do a 5-second automated fade. Let's do a 5-second fade up. Now, if you're wondering why I do this with different lights, you can have problems at different DMX speeds with commands. Okay, let's do 2.5 seconds. That's pretty good. Let's go to 1 second now. And let's go to 1/2 second. Now at a 1/2 second, most lights with DMX are really violent when they dim. It's pretty good. Okay, now let's have a look at a CCT change. So we're going to go from 3200 to 6000 Kelvin. So I'm just checking if there's any stepping in this, and there's no stepping at all. Very, very smooth. Very nice. Okay, let's now change from a CCT to a HSI, see if there's any violence in the engine when it goes from white emitters to color emitters. No, that's instant. It's awesome. Okay, let's do a 5-second transition now from white light to a hue. Very smooth. Let's go back the other way. Okay, let's do that in 2.5 seconds. Let's do 1 second. So what I'm testing for here is if I can use this to do scene changes in camera. It's one of the advantages of DMX over phone apps. Okay, and let's do 1/2 second. Now at 1/2 second, a lot of lights can be violent. Let's see how this goes. That's pretty smooth. Okay, so overall I've got to say the DMX, if you're using wired DMX and you've got an automated controller with your fades, the DMX is quite impressive, especially for the price point. Now, one thing I forgot to test was how it does a CCT crossfade. So let's quickly go back to the tube. So we're going to crossfade here between daylight and tungsten, and we're going to do it over a 5-second automated fade. And back the other way. Okay, let's do that at 2.5 seconds. Okay, let's do that at 1 second now. And let's have a look at 1/2 second. Okay, let's go through the technical data I've collected, starting with brightness. At a distance of 1 meter set to 3200 Kelvin, I got 524 lux. Set to 5600 Kelvin, I got 597 lux. Red came in at 232 lux, green came in at 494 lux, and blue came in at 138 lux. Now these tubes are definitely high-speed flicker-free. They come in at 25.3 kilohertz on my meter. Okay, let's take a look at our average CCT accuracies. Between 2700 and 4000 Kelvin, it was out on average by plus 25 Kelvin. Between 4100 Kelvin and 5000 Kelvin, it was out by 60 Kelvin on average. And between 5100 Kelvin to 6000 Kelvin, the light was out on average by plus 87 Kelvin. Now let's take a look at our TM30 color vector scores. Between 2700 and 4100 Kelvin, the light scores are 94, and between 4200 Kelvin to 6000 Kelvin, the light scores are 95. Now let's take a look at our white point accuracy measured in delta UV. Between 2700 to 4000 Kelvin, it averaged a plus 0.0013. Between 4100 to 5000 Kelvin, it averaged a plus 0.0020. And between 5100 Kelvin to 6000 Kelvin, it averaged a plus 0.0020. Now let's take a look at our combined readings between 7,000 Kelvin and 12,000 Kelvin at 1,000 Kelvin increments. Let's take a closer look at some of the kelvins, starting off with the lowest Kelvin we can dial in. When I dialed in 2,700 Kelvin, I got 2,714 with a TM30 colour vector score of 94% colour accuracy and 99% average saturation. With the CRI scores, only R12 is below 90 and not by much. The light has a very healthy spectrum distribution, and the delta UV came in at plus 0.0008, which means the light is ever so slightly green, but not enough to bother correcting it. When I dialed in 3,200 Kelvin, I got 3,216 with an SSI score of 85. The TM30 colour vector testing came in at 94% colour accuracy with a 101% average saturation. With the CRI scores, only R11 and R12 were below 90. It has a healthy spectrum distribution, and the white point comes in with a delta UV of plus 0.0014. When I dialed in 4,400 Kelvin, I got 4,462 with a TM30 colour vector score of 95% average accuracy and 103% average saturation. With the CRI scores, R9, R11 and R12 were below 90. Here is the spectrum distribution, and the white point came in with a delta UV of plus 0.0020. When I dialed in 5,600 Kelvin, I got 5,688 with an SSI score of 74. The TM30 colour vector scores were very good with a 95% average colour accuracy and an average 103% colour saturation. With the CRI scores, only R11 was below 90. Here is the spectrum distribution, and the white point comes in with a delta UV of plus 0.0020, which means it is riding between the Planckian curve and the daylight curve. Now let's take a look at how accurately these tubes can dial in a colour vector. Red, which should be 0 or 360 degrees, came in at 1 degree. Green was smack on target at 120 degrees. Blue was smack on target at 240 degrees. Yellow, which should be 60 degrees, was very close at 66, but like with most RGB lights, if you want a good looking yellow, dial in 35. Cyan, which should be 180 degrees, came in at 227 degrees, and magenta, which should be 300 degrees, came in at 255. Now let's have a look at how accurately these tubes desaturate a colour. Now in DMX mode, you can select the base Kelvin that you desaturate to. However, I'm working off the Kelvin that the phone app desaturates to, which is the same Kelvin that the tubes manually desaturate to. And that is 5,808 Kelvin. So I've done my testing to the D55 standard at 50% desaturation. Red came in at 357 degrees with 36% saturation. Green came in at 125 degrees with 39% saturation. Blue came in at 243 degrees, 70% saturation. Yellow came in at 59 degrees with 30% saturation. Cyan came in at 227 degrees with 56% saturation. And magenta came in at 258 degrees with 63% saturation. Okay, that's another gear review done. Bit of a mixed review from me. There are quite a few things I don't like about these tubes, but in all honesty, I think they're going to be a massive seller for Nanlite because there is a huge gap in the market at the moment between tube capabilities and cost. So I have a lot of people phoning me up wanting to hire my Titan tubes, but they can't afford them. And I think this will be a good alternative for people like that. All right, I'm Andrew Locke. See you on the next episode of Gaffer and Gear. Please take care of each other on set.